Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go. I found out that my wife is cheating on me. So far, she and Josh don't know that I know. Josh, by the way, is or was my best friend. I know, it's a cliche, but cliches become cliches because they happen so often. I had no idea how to handle the situation. I couldn't comprehend why he was being intimate with my wife. Don't misunderstand me. My wife is quite attractive in her mid-30s, and even after 3 kids, she looks striking in a bikini. But his wife, Carla, is equally stunning, if not more so. Carla stands tall at 5'7", with red hair that cascades to the middle of her back and green eyes that appear to peer into your very soul. I learned her measurements are 36, 23, 34, and I can't deny she had an effect on me. I let things slide for a couple of weeks after finding out about Josh and Heather as I tried to make up my mind about what to do. I loved Heather, and I wondered if there was some way to save our marriage. It didn't seem likely, but I couldn't know for sure until we talked. On Friday, I made up my mind to confront her. On Monday, why the 2-day wait? Heather had gotten a call from a very sick friend who needed help, and she rushed off. I knew that if I called Josh to ask him to play golf on Saturday, I'd get Carla, and she'd tell me Josh wasn't there and was off doing something over the weekend. My parents had taken the kids up to their cabin on the lake for the weekend, so no wife and no kids meant I was going to spend a quiet weekend alone. It could very well be the last quiet weekend I'd ever have. On the way home, I stopped to get a case of beer, fully intending to see that all 24 bottles were empty by Sunday night. When I got home, I put on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and went into the kitchen. Dinner that night was simple. I opened a package of hot dogs and put them in a pan to boil, chopped up an onion, and got a can of baked beans out of the pantry. I dumped the beans into a pot and put it on a burner, then opened my second beer. I was searching the fridge for mustard when the doorbell rang. Upon opening the door, Carla stood before me. She wore a tank top, seemingly without undergarments, paired with short denim shorts and flip-flops. The outline of her form was noticeable through the fabric of her top, causing an immediate and intense reaction in me. "Are you doing anything important?" she asked. "Batching it, working on dinner, and drinking beer," I replied. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. "Not in the least. I could use the company," I said as I stepped aside to let her in. We walked to the kitchen, and she sat down at the table. I knew she didn't drink beer, so I opened a bottle of Merlot and poured her a glass. "Dinner's nothing fancy," I said. "Hot dogs and baked beans. Pretty simple stuff." I turned off the heat and moved the pans to the cold side of the stove, got 2 plates from the cupboard, and handed one to Carla. She fixed herself 2 hot dogs and spooned some beans onto her plate. We sat down to eat, and I asked, "What brings you over? You have any idea where Heather is?" "She went to help a sick friend." "I wonder when it happened." "When what happened?" "When Josh got sick. He seemed quite healthy to me when he left the house. You do know that Josh is involved with Heather, right? And that they are currently in room 130 at the Arrowhead Lodge." "I didn't know they were at the Arrowhead, but I've known for a couple of weeks now that she's been cheating on me." "How did you find out?" "I discovered a piece of a prophylactic wrapper in his pants pocket while doing laundry. He doesn't use them with me because we've been trying to conceive. I resolved not to have his child if he was unfaithful. I didn't want to risk becoming a single mother in the event of a separation, so I hired a private investigator with some inheritance from my father. They meet for extended lunches, and when he tells me he's working late, he's often spending time with Heather." "How did you learn about it?" "I was in the basement working on a bookcase I'm making. The phone rang, and I picked up the basement extension. Heather must have picked up the upstairs phone a second or so ahead of me, and I heard her say the word lover just as I put the phone to my ear. So I quietly listened while Josh told her they would have to skip their usual long lunch at the Marriott due to an important meeting. I got to listen to her tell him that she would miss him and that he'd have to work hard to make it up to her next time." "You haven't done anything about it." "I haven't been able to make up my mind as to what to do." I told her I had decided to confront Heather when she got home and see where it went from there. What are you going to do? Carla asked. Hopefully, I'll be doing it in a few minutes. I gave her what must have seemed to her like a confused look and said, Do what? She got up, came over, and sat on my lap. I've seen the way you look at me. And I know very well that if we weren't married, you would have pursued me. We might both still be married, but we don't owe Josh and Heather any more loyalty than they have shown us. She hugged me, and her hand slid up my leg beneath my shorts, reaching the edge of my underwear. I shifted to get more comfortable, and her hand moved beneath my underwear. I looked at her in amazement as she leaned in, and our lips met. She slipped her tongue into my mouth while her hand held me firmly. Caught up in the moment, I kissed her back, our tongues intertwining. She paused and said, I'm aiming for the ultimate payback. Despite our decision to try for a baby, I've consistently found reasons to avoid intimacy during my fertile periods to be extra cautious. I visited my doctor and got a diaphragm, she said with a sly smile. How much do you want to get back at Josh? I asked. Why do you ask that? It is my ultimate revenge. I am at my peak fertility right now, and my contraceptive device is in my purse. Yummy. That is exactly what I mean, she replied. Carla was right. It would be the ultimate revenge to have Josh raising my child, believing it to be his own. I smiled and slid my hand under Carla's tank top, confirming my suspicion that she wasn't wearing a bra as I touched her. She responded with a moan. Her lips met mine with fervor as my other hand ventured under her shorts, revealing another layer she had foregone. I gently caressed her, eliciting a whisper, "Oh, yes." Breaking the kiss, I said, "On Heather's side of the bed. That's where I want you, on Heather's side of the bed." She got off my lap and said, "Let's go." We both quickly disrobed when we reached the bedroom, and Carla's unclothed form was stunning. She had a feature I had only seen in men's magazines. She was completely smooth. I'd already noted that Heather was attractive, but I couldn't understand why Josh would be intimate with my wife when he had someone like Carla. Carla seemed to be pondering the same thing. She gazed at my bare figure with a quizzical expression, and when I inquired about her thoughts, she said, "I just don't understand it. You're more endowed than Josh, so why would Heather want to be intimate with my husband when she has you at home? It makes no sense to me." "Doesn't matter. You're here now, and for the time being, those other two people don't even exist. Take me to bed now." Carla gestured toward Heather's side of the bed with a smile and suggested, "Let's spend time together on Heather's side of the bed, and then we can go to my place and continue on Josh's side." "Deal," I said as she reclined on the bed. I positioned myself accordingly as she raised her legs, urging me to be with her passionately. "Can't do it. Not until I've had a taste," I said as I kissed her smooth skin and continued until Carla cried out, "Enough. Make love to me." I advanced and pressed on, and our bodies joined intimately. "Oh, yes," she hissed. "Fill me, love her. Fill me and embrace me tightly." I did as the lady requested. We were engaged in a passionate encounter filled with intense sounds that echoed off the walls. She pleaded with me to continue, her words fueling my desire. Determined to satisfy her first, I pushed her toward her peak. When Carla reached her climax, I could no longer restrain myself. I reached the edge, releasing into her. We were both sweaty and gasping for breath when I withdrew and collapsed onto the bed beside her. Carla propped herself up on an elbow and gazed down at me. "I can't believe this. I just can't believe this. Heather can have this, and she wants my husband." Her hand reached for me and she began to caress me gently. I felt a twitch and Carla whispered, "Good boy," noticing the signs of life. "And that's a good thing because we're not even close to being done yet, lover." She moved down and began to caress me with her mouth. Her actions quickly revitalized my once dormant excitement. She then paused, shifted her position, and with a playful declaration of my turn to ride, she began to move rhythmically atop me. Carla and I reached a point of intense passion once again, and I shifted her position so that she lay on her back. Our connection deepened, and we shared a moment of peak intensity. As we rested afterward, she said, "You aren't going to make me go home tonight, are you?" "Silly girl," I said as I pulled her to me. We fell asleep, wrapped around each other. I woke before Carla did in the morning, And as I lay there looking at her, I couldn't help but think that my actions with Josh's wife didn't make me any better than Heather. I could rationalize it by saying that Heather's infidelity released me from my vows. She did, so I could too. What's good for one is good for the other, right? Turnabout is fair play, right? But for me, the bottom line was that I had been unfaithful to my marriage. I couldn't claim the moral high ground when I confronted Heather. True, she didn't know what I had done, but I knew. I hadn't noticed that Carla was awake until she said, "You look deep in thought. What are you thinking?" I told her, and she said, "I made the same promises you did when I married Josh. So I guess that makes me unfaithful too. But I don't see it that way. Josh made the same vows as I did, and then he broke them to me. That meant we had a contract. And if we were dealing in law, if I remember correctly from my business law classes, Josh would be in breach of contract, and the contract could be declared null and void. I know marriages aren't handled that way, but it doesn't change the fact that Josh and I had a contract, and he broke that contract with me. That means, at least to me, that I no longer have to honor that contract unless I choose to. You need to look at your marriage the same way. You aren't being unfaithful. You are only doing what her breach of her contract with you has freed you up to do. Enough of this talk. Take me out and feed me, and then we need to go to my place and reclaim Josh's side of the bed and work on starting a family." Her hand began to glide down my body, and as it reached my lower abdomen, I could feel a growing excitement. We became passionately involved again. If she wasn't expecting by the time we fell asleep at her place, it certainly wasn't due to a lack of effort. In the morning, Carla inquired about the time the kids would return, and I informed her they would be home around 6. She served me steak and eggs for breakfast, suggesting I'd need my energy for the day's activities. We called it quits around 4 so I could head home and be there in case my parents got there earlier than expected. Before I left, Carla asked me if I had made up my mind about what I was going to do, and I admitted that I hadn't. "Are you a good enough actor to pretend that everything is fine?" she asked. "I don't know why," I said. "Because in my opinion, the best retaliation is for us to continue what we spent the weekend doing. I want to keep at it until I'm pregnant. Also, you need to consider your children. A divorce will limit your access to them because around here, the courts always award custody to the mother. You might only see them every other weekend, and that's if Heather isn't too upset with you to find some reason to prevent the visits. My advice would be to tolerate her and live life as usual, except that you and I would be passionately involved whenever possible." "I don't know about that, Carla. Sooner or later, cheaters get caught. If they catch us, it reduces our chance to hold the high ground in any talks we have. They got caught because of careless mistakes. You discovered Heather's secret because they foolishly used the landlines to talk. I learned about it because Josh was so negligent he brought proof home in his pocket. We won't risk that. We'll buy a couple of prepaid phones from Walmart and use them to communicate, preventing our spouses from finding them. We'll store them in our work desks. We'll coordinate our meetings to coincide with theirs." "No, we won't be able to do that. If Heather calls and says she has to work late, I'll have to babysit. And if they are doing it on their lunch hours, we won't be able to, because I can only rarely take long lunches. You can sometimes work late, can't you? When you do, she'll need to be home to watch the kids. I play cards with some sorority sisters from college every Wednesday night, and sometimes I stop for drinks after work with my colleagues. And Josh is accustomed to that. Another thing we can do is put a tap on our phone lines so we'll know what they're discussing. Are you interested?" "You fought it all out, haven't you?" Carla asked. "Maybe I've missed something, but with both of us working together, I think we can cover all the bases." "You're sure you want to do this?" "Absolutely sure. Like I told you in the beginning, I want revenge on Josh. I gave him everything I had, and he stabbed me in the back. I spoiled that scoundrel rotten and was intimately generous with him 3 and 4 times a week. And he cheats on me. No way am I going to let it slide. My idea of the perfect revenge is to let him raise another man's kid. And what could be sweeter than having the husband of the woman he is cheating with be the father of that child? I understood the desire for revenge and the difficulty of accepting someone else raising my child. But I was uncertain about pretending to be a loving husband to a wife who was unfaithful. You have an incentive, my love, Carla said with a sly smile. I do? Over the last 48 hours, you seem to have thoroughly enjoyed what I provided. You can have as much as you want, whenever you want, and for as long as you want. You do know that's an incredibly hard offer to refuse. I certainly hope so. And there's more. Josh wants 2 children, a boy and a girl. And I want both to have the same father. It could be even better. What if the first 2 are both girls? I know he'll want a son. Are you willing to keep trying? I am, as long as we don't get caught. We'll just have to make sure that doesn't happen. Oh, and one last thing. Can you act natural around Josh? It'll be difficult not to show a knowing smile, aware that I'll be doing my utmost to start a family with him. But I believe I can manage it. I think Tuesday will be my next night to stop after work with the girls. What a coincidence. I'll be working late on Tuesday, I said with a grin. My folks dropped the kids off at 6:30 that evening and told me they hadn't eaten yet, so I took them to McDonald's. Unsurprisingly, they wanted Happy Meals. After we ate, we went home and found Heather there. She asked where we had been, and when I told her, she replied in a snippy tone, "Why didn't you call me and see if I wanted to go to dinner with you? You didn't tell me when you'd be back, and you didn't call my cell to let me know you'd returned." I replied in the same sharp tone. She gave me a nasty look and then went to greet the children while I put them to bed. I went online and researched how to tap a phone line using a voice-activated tape recorder. I decided to purchase 1 or 2 on my way home from work the next day. I figured I'd buy 2 so I could tap not only my line but also Josh's. I'd have to call Carla to arrange it. I noticed Heather hadn't showered before coming to bed. She might have showered earlier, but perhaps she hadn't. And I wasn't interested in being intimate after someone else. I might have unknowingly accepted it before, but not this time. When Heather initiated, I claimed to have an upset stomach and suggested waiting until the next day. Monday at 3:20, my secretary informed me that Mrs. Carla Marvis wished to see me. I instructed Shelley to allow Carla to enter. Carla came in, closed the door behind her, and approached me to offer a greeting. "Too bad you have a secretary right outside your door. If she weren't there, I'd lock the door and we could share an intimate moment right here on your desk. If you can kill 10 minutes, she goes home at 3:30, I replied with a grin. "Oh, wow. I was just kidding. But I can easily kill 10 minutes, she said as she opened her purse, taking out a cell phone and handing it to me. I already programmed my number into it. The plan for tomorrow, she continued, is that at lunchtime, I'm going to the Marriott to secure a room. I chose the Marriott because it requires going inside and down a hall to access the rooms, avoiding any external doors that might expose our entry. I'll call you with the room number. I'll leave work at 4:30 p.m. and head straight there. When you arrive, visit the bar and order a drink. If anyone recognizes you, they'll assume you stopped for a drink on your way home. After your drink, join me in the room where I will be waiting for you." "Okay. Sounds like a plan to me. On the way home, I'm picking up what we need to tap our phones. When would be a good time for me to come over and do it?" "It's already done," Carla replied. "I went online, found out how to do it, and I already had a recorder that I could use." At that point, Shelley stuck her head in the door and said, "I'm leaving, Mr. B. See you in the morning." When the door closed, Carla got up to lock the door. When she turned back to me, I already had my pants and briefs off and was clearing the desk. Carla laughed and said, eager, "I appreciate that quality in a man," she teased as she subtly hinted at her readiness for intimacy. It was a swift, uncomplicated encounter, and we were both satisfied. As Carla was getting dressed, she said, "That'll hold me till tomorrow. But you had better come to the room prepared for a long and energetic evening. Maybe you should load up on vitamins." I debated whether to clean myself before going home. If I became intimate with Heather that night, there was a mischievous part of me that found it intriguing to do so, with traces of Carla still present, likely dried by then. However, Heather often began with more intimate acts, and she might notice a different taste. Deciding it was better to be cautious, I headed for the men's room to freshen up. I stopped at Radio Shack on the way home and bought 2 recorders and 6 extra tapes. I've got the second recorder so I could listen to the tapes in my office. I would save any tape that had something on it from the two lovers against the day I would be telling a judge why I wanted a divorce. Heather had dinner ready when I got home, and she had wine out, which was a good sign that she was in a romantic mood. I wondered about that. She had spent the weekend with her lover, and now she came home wanting more. Was she developing an insatiable desire, or did she just enjoy being with her unsuspecting husband after being with her lover? Maybe someday I'd find out the answer to that one. Intimacy with Heather was always satisfying, and she was open to various experiences. She was skilled in providing pleasure, though not quite as adept as Carla. If Carla had been truthful and not merely flattering me when she mentioned my size compared to Josh's, I was curious about what Heather found lacking in me. Perhaps one day I would find out. When dinner was over, the kids were parked in front of the electronic babysitter, and we were doing the dishes. Heather said, "You do know that you have your work cut out for you tonight, right?" "Oh, and why is that?" "You have to make up for last night." "I'll do my best." "Your best is always spectacular, my love." I wanted to say, "Then why are you with Josh?" But I kept my mouth shut while Heather read to the children. I descended into the basement, located the phone line's entry point into the house, and installed a tap on the phone. Heather didn't leave for work until an hour after I did, and I surmised that was when she and Josh would engage in most of their conversations. I could be mistaken, though. Heather owned a cell phone, and they could potentially communicate using her work phone while she was at her job. I was betting that the call I had eavesdropped on indicated they conversed when she was at home. We were intimate 3 times that night, which was unusual for us. Typically, we engaged in such activities 3 or 4 times a week, but usually just once, though sometimes twice. Another curiosity to ponder. The alarm sounded just after we completed our 3rd round. We were lying beside each other when Heather said, "Have you given any thought to us having another child?" "Not really," I replied, as I particularly didn't consider Josh's. "In fact, I've been considering getting a vasectomy, so you could stop taking birth control pills and we could still be safe." "Why wouldn't you want another?" "We had Mike and Anna so soon after our wedding that we never had a chance to go places and do things. As it sits now, we'll still be young enough to do some things when Mike and Anna strike out on their own. More kids would prevent that. Besides, right now we need the income from your job. We'd be pinched if you had to leave work because of a pregnancy." In my mind, I was thinking some really unpleasant thoughts. Heather and Carla talked, and I was certain Heather knew Carla and Josh had decided to try for a child. Did Heather want to have Josh's first child before Carla could? Was there something Heather held against Carla, or was it simply Heather trying to assert her rights to her partner? Either way, it didn't make me feel like I could commit to Carla's plan. In my mind, I was going to have to end things with Heather pretty soon. Then I had a very, very bad thought. Were Mike and Anna even mine? I was going to have to find out. I fell into a very disturbed sleep that night, only to wake up later with the same unsettling thoughts running through my head. The next afternoon, after a tiring meeting in room 202 of the downtown Marriott, I shared my concerns with Carla. "I can't even make a wild guess as to what you should do," Carla said. "Confront her about Josh now before he can get her pregnant. Of course, she could already be expecting and just getting ready to tell you. I know what I'd do, but I'm not a man, and I'm not you." "What would you do?" "I'd simply tell her that I don't want more children, so for safety, I'll start using protection until I can have a vasectomy. If she becomes pregnant, that's when I'd address the issue. I'd suggest we need a DNA test to determine if the child is mine or Josh's. That would likely surprise her. If I get a vasectomy, though, it will blow our revenge plan. Just don't agree until you ensure I'm expecting. It would be unfortunate because I really want all my children to share the same father." We might be fortunate. Perhaps Heather was merely gauging my interest in having another child, and my lack of enthusiasm might dissuade her. We'll never be certain unless she approaches me with the news that she's expecting. Carla looked at her watch and said, "We have time for a couple more chances for you to make me a mommy." I stopped on the way home to purchase protection, and that night, when Heather initiated intimacy, I prepared to use it. "What's that for?" she asked. "I've decided to use them until I can get a vasectomy. I really don't want any more kids." "Well, take it off. I hate the feel of those things. I'll stay on the pill and use spermicide until I can get fitted for a diaphragm. That should keep us plenty safe, she replied. Hated the feel of them. I thought as I finished putting it on. Heather was inexperienced when we got married, and I had never used protection with her. When did she discover that she disliked the sensation? And with whom? Regardless, it just reinforced my decision to determine the paternity of my 2 children. I finished rolling it on and said, unless you already have the spermicide, I'll use the raincoats that I bought today. I don't, but I'll get some tomorrow and make a doctor's appointment for the diaphragm. I don't want you getting a vasectomy. I want to keep the option open in case you ever change your mind. I maintained protection, positioned myself on the bed, and engaged in an intimate act with her. As her excitement peaked, she attempted to draw me closer, but I withdrew and continued with the act. She experienced pleasure swiftly, after which I deliberately guided her to another peak before accelerating and reaching my own climax. I remained close to her until I relaxed, then withdrew, disposed of the protection, and returned to find Heather asleep on her side. I figured it was a good time to head down to the basement and check the recorder. I found a couple of junk calls before I hit pay dirt. Hello. Good morning, sweetie. Miss me? Josh's voice echoed. Of course I do. We still on for lunch today? Heather asked. Yes, but I think our lunch meetings are about over, unless we can find some place where it won't cost so much. Those motel rooms are draining my family budget. I can't keep taking from it. Sooner or later, there won't be enough in it to feed my family, and I certainly don't want Barb asking why. I'll try to come up with something. Wednesday night is her card night. Have you figured out a way to get out of the house yet? Josh asked. Not yet, but I'm working on it, Heather replied. I'll cross my fingers. I need more of you than I get on a 45-minute lunch break, Josh said. Me too, lover. Talk to you tomorrow. Of course. Till then, bye, baby. I almost became sick when I realized I had been intimate with Heather after she'd been with Josh that afternoon. But I managed not to. I found it interesting that she was not only unfaithful to me, but she also had to pay for the room to do it in. I wondered how Carla would react when she heard that her husband referred to her with a derogatory term. The only thing I knew for sure as I climbed the steps out of the basement was that Heather would not be able to leave the house on Wednesday night. Tuesday, when I got to work, I took the track phone out of my desk drawer and called Carla. When she answered, I said, "Good morning, jerk." "What? Who in the world is this?" she asked. "You've forgotten the voice of the father-to-be of your children already? And besides, who else has this number?" "Bob, why are you calling me an offensive name?" "Listen to this," I said as I held the recorder up to the phone and pressed play. After the part about Heather's cart night, I said, "See, I have it on good authority that you were unfaithful. A husband knows these things about his wife, right? When the time comes, I'll eliminate the despicable person." I played the rest of the tape for her, and after she listened, she asked me what I was going to do. "I think I'll have to work late on Wednesday, but I won't let Heather know until it's almost time for her to finish work. Hopefully, it will be too short notice for her to arrange a babysitter. Did you catch the part where Heather says she's paying for the room they meet in?" "Doesn't surprise me. Josh has always been cheap. I guess if you're going to work late, I'll skip my card night, and we can get together." "I'll call you tomorrow and set it up," Carla replied. Wednesday over breakfast, Heather asked me if I had plans for the evening. When I said no, I asked why she wanted to know. "The girls from work have been talking about stopping after work to have a couple of drinks and socialize away from the office. I can't do it unless you're here to watch the kids," she said. "Shouldn't be a problem," I replied. I kissed her goodbye and left for work. Afterwards, I rented a room at the Marriott. Upon arriving at work, I called Carla and provided her with a room number. At 4:40, I informed Heather that I'd be working late. There are some problems with the Henderson contract that need to be resolved before Nathan meets with them tomorrow morning. "Sorry for the short notice, but I really can't get out of it," I told her. "I may be really late, so don't wait up for me. Love you. Bye." The evening with Carla in room 333 was intense and exhausting. By the time I got home, Heather was already asleep, If she had been awake and in the mood, I doubt I would have had the energy to do anything about it. For the next 5 weeks, Carla and I were able to meet on average twice a week. The phone taps made it easier to know Josh and Heather's schedules ahead of time. During the 5th week, Carla shared some unexpected news. "Congratulations, Daddy," she said with a mischievous smile. "How about passionately embracing the mother of your child? How does Josh feel about it?" "He doesn't know yet," she replied. "I needed to tell the baby's father first. Then I can tell Josh." "You know," I said, "the one thing we haven't done that they have is go off for a weekend together. I think we owe it to ourselves to celebrate your pregnancy. We just need to do it without the two of them putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with the right answer." "Funny that you should bring that up right now," Carla said. "Josh has to fly to San Diego this weekend to deal with some details regarding his father's estate. He's going early so we can visit with relatives before seeing the attorney on Monday. If you can come up with a way to get out for the weekend, we can go someplace, and neither one of them would have any reason to suspect anything." "I think I can do it," I said. I called my brother, Bill, who lived in Akron. When I got him on the phone, I asked him to call Heather just after I left for work in the morning. "Tell her there's a family emergency and I need to come home for the weekend," I instructed. I promised to fill him in on the details later. Bill agreed, saying he'd help however he could. The next morning, Heather called me on my cell about 5 minutes after I left the house. "You need to call Bill as soon as possible. There's a family emergency and he needs to talk to you," she said. "I'll call him as soon as you hang up," I replied. I waited until I got to work before calling Bill. "What's up?" he asked, feigning concern. I explained the situation to him, and he assured me I could count on his help. I trusted him, as he despised unfaithful individuals. His wife had been unfaithful before her passing, leaving him a single father raising their children alone. I called Carla and told her the setup. We made arrangements to leave for the weekend and celebrate her pregnancy. I called the Arrowhead Lodge and reserved room 130. Only fitting, I thought with a smirk. At 2 p.m. I called Heather. "I'm flying back to Akron," I told her. "I'll stop by the house and pack a bag. My flight leaves at 8, and I need to get there at least half an hour early to check in. I hate to sound selfish, but I do hope this isn't serious. I need you to have all your parts so we can grow old together," Heather said. "Darn, Heather, the way you say that makes me think you might actually love me," I said, testing her reaction. "There better not be any doubt in your mind about that, Buster. Not even a smidgen," she replied. "If you only knew," I thought as I said goodbye and hung up. When I arrived home, Heather was waiting for me in what she called her alluring outfit, unclothed except for high heels. "Do you have time to give me something to tide me over until you return?" she asked seductively. Since I didn't need to rush to catch a non-existent flight, I said I had the time. Heather was lying on the bed, her confidence clear in her posture and tone. As I dressed afterward, she said on the phone, "You almost sounded like you doubted that I love you." "Just kidding, babe. I know full well how much you love me. You show me just how much every time you're intimate with Josh." The weekend with Carla was exhausting. We spent time together intimately, went to bed, woke up in the morning, and repeated the cycle: intimacy, breakfast, more intimacy, lunch, a break by the pool, dinner, drinks, dancing, and back to the room. By Monday morning we were drained, but we promised each other we'd do it again. Then we went our separate ways and returned home. Heather was at work when I arrived, so I went to the basement and checked the recorder. The first call on Friday morning was from Bill. A couple of minutes after hanging up with him, Heather got a call from Josh. "Did you figure out a way to get loose for the weekend? I'd love to spend a couple of uninterrupted days with you," Josh asked. "No, Josh, I haven't been able to think of a way, and the truth of the matter is that I don't want to come up with a way," Heather replied. "What's the matter?" "Why not?" Josh pressed. "The guilt over what I've been doing has finally caught up with me. I love Bob, and he deserves better than to have a cheating wife," Heather said. "The next time we get together, I was going to tell you it's over. I need to devote myself to Bob." "Oh, come on, Heather. You've been intimate with me for almost a year. How could you do that if you love him as much as you say?" Josh asked. First, I need to correct something you just said. I've never been intimate with you in a loving way. I've had a physical relationship with you, but I've never made love to you. The only man I'm intimate with in that way is Bob, Heather explained. Nonsense, Heather. You never showered before we left the motel rooms. I keep a travel bag at work with all the essentials for personal hygiene. Bob has never detected even a hint of your presence, Heather shot back. No, Josh. I'm ending this before we get discovered. I love Bob, and I don't want to lose him. Be content that you managed to sway me when I was inebriated that first time. Maybe so, Josh replied, but you weren't drunk all the other times. Depends on what you mean by drunk, Heather said. I was intoxicated with the excitement I got from being with Bob after you and I were intimate. I wanted to see if the thrill would be there if I was sober. So I let you and I be together a second time, and it was. That is the only reason I continued. But I've come to realize the feeling I get from going to Bob after being with you isn't worth the risk of losing him if we got caught. Enjoy your time in California, Josh, and when you return, don't contact me. Goodbye. Interesting, I thought as I pulled the tape and inserted a fresh one. I unpacked and headed to work around 11 a.m. I called Carla, and when she answered I said, "Aye." "Miss me already?" she teased. "You know it's attractive," I replied. "I have something I want you to hear." "If it's Friday's phone conversation, I've already heard it," she said, her tone calm but curious. It seemed she came to her senses and recognized she could lose me, I said. "What's your plan?" Carla asked. I'd already made up my mind to hang in there until the kids turned 18, and I can't see anything that would make me change my mind. If Heather meant what she said to Josh, it'll make it easier to stick it out. But the trust is gone. Even if she does break it off with Josh and they never get together again, how do you know she won't start missing the thrill and excitement of cheating and hook up with some new guy somewhere down the line? Carla questioned. You could always hit her with, "If you're really through with Josh, maybe we can move on. But you get no second chances," she added. "No, I couldn't," I replied. "That would give up the information that I have a tap on the phone. And like I said, the trust is gone. I'm going to need a way to keep track of what she's up to. Besides, she knows me, and she'd know that if I knew, I would have shared it with you. She might tell that to Josh, and that might get him thinking. And we don't want that. Is that your roundabout way of saying that we're going to keep on going?" Carla asked. "You heard the tape," I replied. "They'd gotten away with it for a little over a year, and you and I have only been at it for a couple of months. They owe us another 10 or 12 months. And then, of course, there are the penalties and interest that could make it even longer." Carla laughed softly. "Sounds fair," she said, "and I agree. I'd like to see Josh stew a little longer, too." Carla and I continued to meet about twice a week until her 7th month of pregnancy. She was willing to continue, but she was so large with the twins that I was concerned I might hurt her. That's right, twins. The ultrasound had revealed that Carla was expecting 2 little girls. After Carla gave birth to the twins, true to her prediction, Josh wanted a son. So 2 years after the birth of the girls, Carla got pregnant again. This time the ultrasound revealed it was a boy. We made love until her 8th month, but then we called it quits. We both felt that we had gotten away with it long enough, and getting caught at that point would have turned Carla into a single mom with 3 kids to raise. Neither of us wanted that. As Carla put it during our last time together, the aim was to exact revenge on the unfaithful scoundrel by making him raise another man's children. "I must remain married to him for this to occur," she said. "Josh received a promotion that required him to move, and I haven't seen or talked to Carla since they moved. However, I do think of her often and fondly. It has been 6 years now, and as far as I know, at least according to the phone taps, Heather hasn't become involved with anyone else. However, she and Josh managed to conceal their affair for over a year before I discovered it, and I was completely unaware. She might have become savvy enough to stop using the home phone for such matters, but I monitor her closely. So far, I haven't seen any indication that she's being unfaithful. Heather has been trying her hardest to pamper me. She dotes on me and makes an effort to rebuild what was lost. I still feel conflicted, though. I'm reconsidering my plan to leave when the kids turn 18. That's 4 more years for Mike and 5 for Anna. I'll just have to wait and see. Perhaps time will provide the answers I can't seem to find now.